I never thought turning down an HOA membership could cost me everything, but it did. My name's Mark, and I had just moved into what I thought would be my peaceful forever home in a quiet, upscale neighborhood. It's a kind of place where people wave politely and keep their lawns trimmed just right. Everything seemed perfect till the HOA came knocking. They told me joining was strongly encouraged. I politely declined. That was the beginning of a nightmare I never saw coming. At first, it started small. Petty warnings left on my door. Random fines for things like the shade of my curtains or where I parked my car beam, though nothing violated local codes. But when they realized I wasn't going to cave, things got ugly fast. Property damage, harassment, and then fire. One night, flames tore through my home, leaving behind only ash and disbelief. The so-called investigation blamed faulty wiring, but I knew better. And so did they. What the HOA didn't know was who I really was. Beneath my quiet demeanor and modest house, I'm a federal judge. Not just any judge, one of the most feared when it comes to corruption and abuse of power. I've taken down crooked officials and even exposed an entire bribery ring in a major city. And now, they messed with me. I watched as neighbors whispered, some smug, others uncomfortable. The HOA board thought they were untouchable, that they could bully anyone into submission. But this time, they picked the wrong guy. I didn't say a word to them. I didn't have to. I had a plan, and it started the moment I stepped out of the ashes. What came next wasn't just payback, it was justice. But before I brought down the entire operation, something happened that no one, especially me, was ready for. The fire. Report might have said faulty wiring, but I'd had the place inspected twice before moving in. I knew every inch of that home, and there was nothing faulty about it till the flames came. Neighbors said they saw nothing. No smoke until it was too late. No suspicious activity. But their eyes told a different story in ease, avoiding mine. One neighbor even pulled her son inside when I walked by the next day. That's when I knew this wasn't just negligence. This was planned. And everyone was staying silent. A week earlier, the HOA president, Gregory, suited, smug, and with a voice like a politician, had stood on my front lawn. He smiled as he warned me about community unity and how some homes just didn't fit the standard. I didn't think much of it at the time. I'd heard power-hungry types talk like that in court all the time. But now his words echoed differently. And he wasn't alone. The whole HOA board backed him. People who'd lived here for years, with connections in city zoning, insurance, even local law enforcement. I started digging, quietly. Emails, records, old news clippings. Gregory wasn't just running the HOA. He'd been involved in shady land deals and had a habit of pushing out homeowners who refused to play by his rules. Most gave up, sold their homes, and left. But me? I wasn't going anywhere. I had nothing left to lose and everything to expose. But then something strange happened. An anonymous letter showed up at my temporary rental. No return address. Just a few chilling words. You weren't supposed to survive. It stopped me cold. That meant someone knew who I was. Knew I was digging. And they were watching me. I wasn't just facing an overreaching HOA anymore. This went deeper. Much deeper. And I had no idea just how far they were willing to go. I held the letter in my hands for a long time. The handwriting was neat but forced, like someone trying not to reveal too much. Couldn't tell if it was a warning or a threat, maybe both. But it confirmed one thing. Someone inside the neighborhood knew more than they were letting on. I started watching people differently. The quiet couple across the street suddenly avoided eye contact. The teen who used to skateboard past my driveway stopped showing up altogether. Even the mailman seemed nervous, always in a rush. It was like the whole community had been wrapped in this silent agreement to stay loyal to the HOA. Or else, Meanwhile, I found something interesting buried in public records, a pattern. Over the last 5 years, 6 other homeowners on this street had left suddenly. All under vague circumstances, disputes with the HOA, then quick sales at below market prices. Most were older, single, or didn't have the means to fight back. Their homes were renovated fast, resold at high value, and every time someone on the HOA board profited, the pieces were coming together. This wasn't just about power. It was about profit-corrupt real estate flipping, disguised as community management. I also noticed a name popping up frequently in those property transfers: Marla Jensen, the HOA treasurer. On the surface, she was polite, even warm. She'd brought cookies to my door once when I first moved in, but now I realized she had a hand in almost every major sale. Her name was listed on company filings, sometimes hidden behind shell corporations. I started to wonder who else was in on this. Was it just a few power-hungry neighbors, or was the whole system rigged? One night, as I reviewed more documents at my kitchen table, I heard footsteps outside, slow, deliberate. Then came the knock. Not the friendly kind, just 3 slow thuds. No one was supposed to know where I was staying. My breath caught. I didn't move. Outside, someone slid a small envelope under the door. No note this time, just a photo. A blurry shot of me, standing in court behind the bench. They knew exactly who I was, and they weren't done yet. I stared at that photo for what felt like forever. It wasn't just proof they knew who I was, which a message, a challenge. They wanted me to back off, to feel cornered. But instead of fear, I felt something else rise inside me. I'd seen intimidation tactics before, from gang trials to white-collar fraud. This felt like both, wrapped in a gated community smile. The HOA wasn't just a front for neighborhood politics, was part of a bigger, darker operation hiding behind property lines and landscaping rules. The next day, I went to the city records office in person. No more online digging. I needed files, physical ones. What I found confirmed everything. Gregory and Marla had been working with a consulting firm that specialized in distressed properties. That same firm had ties to investors out of state, people who never showed their faces but always came in after a fire, foreclosure, or forced eviction. And in more than one case, there were reports of accidental fires filed just weeks before a sale. As I left the building, I noticed a black SUV parked across the street. Engine running, windows dark. It didn't move. When I pulled out, it followed at a distance. I took side streets. It stayed with me. Finally, I pulled into a crowded grocery store lot and circled twice. It didn't enter, just turned off down the road. A warning, maybe, or a test to see if I'd rattle. I didn't, at least not on the outside. Back at my rental, I secured the door and locked the windows. My phone buzzed. A private number. I let it ring, but it went to voicemail. When I played it back, all I heard was silence, except for one faint sound. A match being struck, then the soft crackle of fire. They weren't just watching me anymore. They wanted me to feel the heat again. And as much as I wanted to believe the law would protect me, I knew this wasn't going to be handled in a courtroom. Not yet. Because the next move, it had to be mine. I replayed the voicemail again, this time with headphones, slowing it down, filtering out the background noise. That's when I heard it, barely audible. But there. A voice. Just a whisper. Right before the match struck, you should have stayed quiet. That single sentence shifted everything. Whoever this was, they weren't just trying to scare me. They were tracking me, listening, watching every step I made. And they were getting bolder. I changed locations that night. A contact from the federal court system owed me a favor and arranged a secure cabin out in the hills, a place no one would think to look. But even there, something didn't sit right. My phone was off, laptop disconnected, but I still had that crawling feeling, like I wasn't alone. The very next morning, a trail cam I'd placed near the tree line sent a notification. One motion capture. A figure standing still, barely inside the frame, not moving, not walking. Just watching. That same day, I received a manila envelope delivered by hand to the local post office box I'd only shared with one former colleague. Inside were court documents, sealed ones from a corruption case I had ruled on 2 years ago, a case involving a powerful real estate developer. And guess whose name showed up in the related financials? Gregory. Not just a neighborhood tyrant. T had been involved in shady deals across multiple states under different aliases. Somehow, he'd slipped through the system. Until now. But here's where things took a darker turn. That developer had disappeared shortly after the ruling. Officially listed as presumed deceased. Except now, I had evidence that suggested he might be alive, and very close. Maybe even connected to the very HOA that destroyed my home. And if he was back, using a new name and new allies, that meant this wasn't about a single vendetta. This was about silencing the one person who knew the truth. And then came the real shock. A coded message tucked into the envelope, something only someone from the inside court system could have written. It said, "You're not the only judge they've marked." Everything snapped into focus the moment I read that last line, "You're not the only judge they've marked." I knew then that this went way beyond my case, beyond my house. I wasn't just dealing with a greedy HOA president or a corrupt treasurer. This was a network, a silent machine built on intimidation, fear, and hidden money. And I had just uncovered its weak point. Exposure. I contacted a trusted federal marshal I'd worked with before. We didn't go through the local police too. Risky, too many connections back to Gregory and his crew. Instead, we formed a quiet task force, bringing in just enough people to stay under radar. Within days, we had subpoenas issued, financial records traced, and surveillance placed on the main HOA members. What we uncovered was staggering dozens of manipulated home sales, offshore accounts, falsified fire reports, and even pressure on city inspectors to look the other way. We moved in fast. Gregory was arrested outside the HOA clubhouse during a board meeting, surrounded by his own supporters who suddenly went quiet. Marla was picked up hours later trying to board a flight out of state. The moment they were in cuffs, the fear in the neighborhood broke. Residents started coming forward quietly at first, then in waves. Stories of bullying, threats, property damage, even attempted blackmail, all poured out. The final blow came when one of the board members, under pressure, revealed the truth about the developer who had vanished years earlier. He was alive, operating under a new identity, none other than Gregory himself. Plastic surgery, new credentials, and a long trail of fake names. That twist hit hard. The man I'd ruled against had rebuilt himself and come after me personally. The fire, the threats, it had all been his twisted idea of revenge. But just as I thought it was over, I received one last package. Inside was a single photo, not of me, not of my home, but of another judge, one I knew well, with a red X marked over their face. This wasn't done. The network was bigger than I imagined. And I wasn't their only target. Seeing that photo of my colleague with the red X was a gut punch. It reminded me that while I had uncovered one layer of this operation, there was still more beneath the surface. I immediately reached out to the judge in question and notified federal authorities. They were relocated under protection, and within weeks more connections to the shadow network began surfacing, more shell companies, more names, and sadly, more victims. It was bigger than a corrupt HOA. It was a real estate crime ring using neighborhood associations as a front for laundering money, forcing out homeowners, and flipping properties for profit. But in my case, justice was finally served. Gregory's real name was uncovered through federal records, was charged with arson, fraud, and conspiracy. Marla and 2 other board members faced prison time as well. The neighborhood was placed under temporary federal oversight while residents elected an entirely new board, this time with full transparency and community involvement. The house I lost couldn't be brought back, but the people who thought they could silence me were finally exposed. I ended up testifying before a congressional subcommittee on HOA corruption and real estate abuse, helping push new oversight laws forward. It's not often a fire leads to real change, but this time it did. And while I still keep that photo with the red X tucked away as a reminder, I know now that shining a light on abuse of power, no matter how quiet or hidden it is, makes difference. So if you ever feel like the rules are being used to trap you instead of protect you, speak up. Document everything. Stand your ground. Because sometimes the smallest refusal, like saying no to an HOA, can reveal the darkest secrets, hiding right in plain sight.